Before this video starts, I just want to give a massive shout out to all my channel members. If you want to receive a shout out, then become a channel member today and you'll be shown on screen like all these other channel members here. Anyways, enjoy the video. On September 26th, version 13.7 dropped in the Japanese version and dropped on October 22nd for the international versions. This update contains a lot of content and I want to talk about everything that was added in this version. Since we have loads to cover, all I ask is that if you enjoy this update analysis, then be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment on what was the most exciting thing about this update was for you. Anyways, we have loads to cover. All units discussed here will use their level 30 stats. The first new unit added is a brand new Ultra Soul, this being Hanasaka Cat. This first form, like all of the other Ultra Souls, is very spammable, having a cooldown of 9.2 seconds. They resist angels and zombies, giving them an effective 113,000 health with a cost of 765 cents. They have a rather short standing range of 160, making them more of a melee tank that can complement either Ramen or Shigan. While they may have a total damage output of 18,870, only 2 of the 3 hits are going to land, as the first 2 hits are unconnected with each other, with the final hit landing at both spots that each of the first 2 landed. The final hit lands between negative 160 range to 160 range. The total damage output by this disconnect is in reality 14,960 or 2.3k DPS. They also have a 30% chance to freeze angel and zombies for 2.4 seconds. For their zombie matchup, they can usually land a hit or 2 against an enemy that they would be outranged by. Their freeze chance isn't the highest, so it should be treated more as a bonus, and their damage output is okay. Their real strength comes from their ability to tank, especially alongside the specialist speed shields of Ramen and Shigan respectively. They can be used to help plug up any gaps that either of these two may face, though Hanasaka Cat may be tricky to use if the stage is short in cash. As is the case for all of the Ultra Souls, the second form goes from a spammable unit to a more conventional Uber. This turns Hanasaka Cat into the Ravenous Cherry. In this evolved form, their health goes up to 217,000, meaning their effective health against angel and zombies is 1.08 million health. This amount of health is comparable to the likes of King Gamarion and Cat 8 Behemoth in terms of just how much bulk they have against their targets. This effectively means that they're one of the tankiest units for these two traits. They also still have their freeze effect, now boosted to a 50% activation chance with it lasting 3.6 seconds. However, their damage output is still somewhat small, only dealing a total of 27,300 damage across the 2 hits that will land. This usual usage is not really going to be for an attacker unit due to their low damage, but rather as a thick wall that can stall these enemies out for a long while. As is the trend for the new Ubers releasing these last few updates, they also gain a summon. This summon will both knock back enemies and weaken them for 7.2 seconds or 6 seconds against untreasured traits. This can be super useful for being able to regain ground and to prevent enemies from being able to push too much for a good while. Overall, while this unit does suffer a lack of any major damage output, this unit's ability to tank for a very long period of time, especially thanks to their freeze, can make them a very valuable wall on angel and zombie teams. The next unit is Sodomo Lantern, a Halloween variant of the Dragon Emperor. This Sodom variant trades their 50% chance to knock back against floating enemies to a 75% chance against metal enemies. They are also wave immune and have the Metal Killer ability, allowing them to deal 33% of a metal enemy's current health. Since they also resist metal, they effectively have 543,000 health against them. The main selling point of this Sodom variant is the Metal Killer ability, allowing them to deal a massive chunk of a metal enemy's health, letting your crit units finish them off more easily. However, due to the low overall HP stat of most metal enemies, their main targets would be the bulkier Super Metal Hippo, Sir Metal Seal, and Metal Cyclone. Just like their regular counterpart, they are plagued with an extremely slow speed stat of only 3, so unless you lure, they'll take a very long time to get to the front lines. Their high cost of 6,450 can also make them somewhat impractical to use if cash is hard to save. Their wave immunity makes them a good matchup against Coronium and Cyberface stages, as they can get a good amount of their health off, making these two easier to kill. Outside of metal enemies, they're way too sluggish to properly use, and will at most be used as a wave immune attacker if the player lacks any other option. Then we have Mama Mummy Sumo, a Halloween variant of Sumo Cat that is similar to C Honda from the Street Fighter collab. They resist both black and floating enemies, and are immune to knockback. Their effective health at level 30 against these two is 182,000 health. While this unit won't be able to get too much use against black enemies due to their high cost and longish cooldown, they'll get more use out of floating enemies and can serve as an additional tank alongside Octopus Cat. The best example of these two working together is Adherence to Virtue, where sometimes Octopus isn't able to 100% hold the line, and a boosted Mummy Sumo is more than capable of plugging the gap that Octo may experience. Though generally, unless this stage is heavy in cash, it isn't the best idea to run these two together at all floating stages, and it is usually a better idea to run Octopus and a few cheap meat shields. Now, with this update comes the true end of Uncanny Legends, and along with it comes a brand new unit. This being the Master of Life, Dr. Nova. This unit is unlocked by beating all of 4-star Uncanny Legends and her invasion stage, which will be covered later. This unit is surprisingly bulky, sporting 103,000 health at even just level 30. She also has an LD that stretches from 250 to 550 range, a 100% chance to slow trade enemies for 3.3 seconds or 4 seconds for treasure traits, and has a 30% chance to curse trade-in enemies for 4 seconds or 4.8 seconds for treasure traits. She is also immune to Curse, is a Sage Slayer, and has a brand new ability called an Explosion, starting at 350 range. This Explosion ability will create a sort of wave effect in which the center deals 100% base damage, then each adjacent blast will deal 70 and then 40% the original damage. The first blast hits between plus 75 range and negative 75 range from the formation point. For example, Dr. Nova's first explosion will hit from 275 to 425 range, the second explosion hits from 75 to 175 range, and negative 75 to negative 175 range. In Dr. Nova's case, this is between 175 to 275 range and 425 to 525 range. The last part of the explosion hits between plus 175 to 275 range and negative 175 to 275 range. In Dr. Nova's case, this is between 75 to 175 range and 525 to 625 range. This causes Dr. Nova's damage to be a lot higher than what may be initially shown. While Nova has a base damage of 22,100, this damage translates to 44,200 in the ranges of the first explosion, 37,500 in most of the areas in the range of the second explosion if we factor the initial attack, and 8,840 in the ranges of the last explosion. Now back to the unit herself, Dr. Nova is legitimately one of the strongest legend units, on par with Ubers like Mitama. While Mitama may have a higher immunity count, longer slow uptime, and higher knockback count, the fact is that Dr. Nova is capable of dealing much more damage, is not affected by Curse, and can fully crowd control Sage enemies, making her a great alternative in situations where Mitama wouldn't work. Speaking of Sages, her health jumps to an impressive 207,000 HP, and her damage output, at least when factoring only the initial explosion against Sages, jumps to 53,000 damage. This damage output at level 30 alone makes her a very capable Sage Slayer, and said Slayer is able to resist crowd control effects and bypass the Sage enemy's own crowd control resist. Nova's Curse, although it doesn't have a 100% chance to activate, can come in handy when dealing with enemies that can apply status, such as Wing Piggy and Gobble. This unit overall is an amazing reward for the end of Uncanny Legends, and is very much worth going through the possible hell that is Stardew to acquire, and will make the future of ZL much easier to manage. The last unit is a collab unit from Mercstoria, this being Titanki, an LD anti-alien Aku unit. They are strong against these two traits. They double their damage at 50% health, is immune to Surge, and has a 24% chance to break barriers and Aku shields. The strong ability makes their effective stats against aliens to be 85,000 health, 28,000 damage unstrengthened, and 56,000 damage when strengthened. For Akus, these numbers translate to 68,000 health, 23,000 unstrengthened damage, and 46,000 strengthened damage. This unit is relatively cheap to send out, only costing 3,600 to use, and sports a good range for the LD, stretching from 320 to 720. Outside these two positives, however, her stats are very lackluster. Her stats are 100% geared into only being used against her traits, as her stats are very underwhelming outside her two traits, and even then her damage is only valuable when strengthened. Issue here is that in mixed stages, her paper-thin health makes her very susceptible if her strength is activated, as her lack of high knockback count prevents her from utilizing her strength if she ever gets pushed again. The last part of her underwhelming kit is her odd 24% chance to pierce barriers and shields. While it's a cool reference to her first skill chance of activating, in a game like this, 24% chance on an Uber is extremely underwhelming, as many more viable options for these two abilities exist. Overall, a unit that has very poor stats, low proc rates, and a wonky strength that is extremely hard to properly utilize. In this update, there are 5 new true forms added. The first being a true form for War God Hanzo, turning him into Immortal Hanzo. They go from 61.2k health to 68,000 health and go from 19.5k damage to 22.9k damage, effectively boosting their damage against their traits to 78,000 damage and 91,800 damage. This boosts their effective DPS against block and floating enemies from 18.4k to 21.6k DPS. Their freeze duration is extended from 2 seconds to 2.4 seconds. This true form doesn't add all too much to his overall kit, but turns an already good Uber to an even better one. If you find yourself using Hanzo a lot, then I strongly recommend getting this true form, as it's rather cheap for an Uber true form, only costing 6 green and 4 epic cat fruits. The second true form is for Nosferatu Yukimura, becoming Vampiric Yukimura. They go from dealing 35,000 damage to 40,000 damage, their speed has been buffed from 70 to 80, and their survive chance goes from 30% to 100%. Just like with Hanzo, it doesn't add too much to his overall kit, but makes an already good anti-floating rusher an even better one, as now they will be dealing 160,000 damage per hit against their targets instead of 140,000. The increase in speed allows him to reach his targets more efficiently, and now the 100% survival chance allows him to get one last hit in always, which can easily turn the tide of a battle in the right situations. The speed boost now makes him the 3rd fastest unit in the game, only behind Boulder and Bullet Train. Once again, if you use this Yukimura a lot, then I strongly recommend picking up his true form. The true form costs 3 purple, blue, and epic cat fruits, along with 6 green cat fruits. Foodstall Cat gains a rather impressive true form, gaining an 80% boost to their health, going from 9,400 health to 17,000 health, a range boost of 200 to 220, a speed increase of 21 to 25, a 50% chance to curse angel enemies for 3.6 seconds, curse immunity, and biggest of all, a massive 210% boost to their attack, going from a rather small 3,400 damage to an impressive 10,500 damage. This means that at level 30, they will deal over 40,000 damage to a single angel enemy. This massive boost in damage now also allows them to deal more damage to angels than even Mushroom. However, Mushroom still has the area attack and range advantage over them. In situations where Peon usage is light, then this unit is capable of shredding apart so many angel enemies, and if paired with Mushroom, can be a deadly combo of angel attackers. Their curse ability, although only a 50% chance to activate, is still extremely useful, as it has an uptime of 129%, meaning that if stacked, you can easily keep a curse going. Gokuraku, Cleonel, and Papu are all the best targets for their curse, as their high speed and good enough range allow them to easily shut down all their abilities. While it could work against Wing Piggy, you would need a dedicated setup to deal with them, and even then, it might not work out 100% of the time since other enemies may get in the way. Their curse immunity is also helpful, as a ton of angel enemies like to be paired with relics, and is also useful for dealing with the relic doge base. Overall, a solid true form for a rather forgotten rusher unit. In order to get this true form, you need to beat its awakening stage, which will be discussed later. While most people expected to get Edie's true form at the end of 4-star Uncanny Legends, we instead got another invasion stage in the Face of God that gave Edie's true form. Said stage will be discussed later. Edie NX gained a 20% boost to her health, swapped out her massive damage for insane damage against Relic, gave her Sage Slayer, and gave her explosion immunity. At level 30, her health goes from 25,500 health to 30,600 health. However, seeing as most people will definitely have boosted her beyond level 30, I will instead talk about her at level 50, seeing as this is the level most people will have her at when unlocking the true form. Her health boost at this level goes from 40,500 health to 48,600 health. This health boost is nice, as it usually allows her to utilize an additional knockback that she might have missed out on. Insane damage against relics is a massive game changer, as now instead of dealing 283,000 damage at level 50, she now deals 472,000 damage against relic enemies. This is more than enough to one-shot a 100% Mr. Puffington, two-shot a 100% Autumn, and three-shot a 100% Emost. Since she also gains the Sage Slayer ability, this gives her 97,000 health against sages and deals 113,000 damage against them. Sage Slayer allows Edie to be an amazing rusher unit for Sage enemies, as her health against them is higher than most rushers, and her damage output is very good against them as well. Now, seeing as she has both Sage Slayer and Relic targeting, these two abilities combine to let her deal a massive 567,000 damage against any would-be Relic Sage enemies. She is also immune to the Explosion ability, and it just so happens that the one enemy with this ability is a Relic Sage enemy that is prone to rusher units, but that's for when I discuss the enemies. This true form is a very strong pickup for starred Uncanny Legends, especially with the boost to her damage against relics. In order to get her true form, you must first defeat her invasion of the Face of God after clearing her original invasion stage in the Eldritch Forces and all of 1-star Uncanny Legends. Then you use 3 yellow Behemoth gems and 5 epic Behemoth stones to evolve her. The last true form added is for Nono of the Mercstoria collab. She gains a speed increase of 11 to 14, a decrease in her backswing going from 1.5 seconds to 1.07 seconds, a 50% chance to survive a lethal strike, curse immunity, and a reduction to her cost going from 315 to 285. This true form makes Nono able to focus on sticking to the front line more often, as she is now faster and takes less time to finish her attack animation in the event it does activate. The survive isn't the most useful thing in the world due to the nature of black enemies being rather aggressive, and curse immunity is only useful in stages with either the relic doge base or relic stages that have black enemies. Unlike angel enemies, black enemies don't really pair up with relic enemies all too often. Her cost reduction allows her to be more spammable, even if just a little bit, and compare even better with Crystal Little Gao Gao as 2 anti-black meat shields. Overall, an okay boost to a good meat shield. In order to get her true form, you need 2 purple catfruit seeds and an additional blue and green seed. This update sees the addition of 1 Ultra form. This is the Ultra form for Immortal Kenshin, Hellrider Kenshin. She goes from having 142,000 health to 160,000 health, a range increase from 405 to 445, a faster cooldown from 144.53 seconds to 131.2 seconds, and a 100% chance to activate a level 4 mini wave. This mini wave bumps her DPS to 14,485. Her trait-specific multipliers turn her health to 400,000 against black enemies, 320,000 for relic enemies, and the mini-wave bumps her damage against black enemies to 112,000 damage and 93,000 damage against relics. The DPS bump goes to 31,000 DPS against black enemies and 26,000 DPS against relics. The biggest boost given to Kenshin is her level 4 mini-wave, as it can reach way far back enemies like Kurosawa and Golem Sunfish, but can also make the knockback effect more effective against the rest of her targets as well. She can also more comfortably fight enemies like Noah now that she can outrange them. The health boost is also nice, giving her some more survivability. The cooldown reduction is pretty negligible, as it only makes her cooldown 10% faster, but the cooldown length itself is still more than 2 minutes. While these changes are nice and making her much better at her job, it doesn't really add anything truly unique to her kit that makes her stand out. If you use Kenshin a lot, then I recommend picking up this Ultra form, but otherwise you could probably skip out. In order to get her Ultra form, you need 1 yellow Behemoth gem, 3 blue Behemoth stones, 5 purple Behemoth stones, and 3 purple catfruit. Four units gain talents in this update, these being Picolan Passalan, Gravolodon, Mystica, and Eyewaltz. Mystica and Gravolodon both gain standard attack and defense talents, whereas Picolan and Eyewaltz only gain HP talents. First off is Picolan Passalan, who gains a 50% chance to survive a lethal strike, an additional second to their weaken effect, as well as wave and surge resist. PONOS continues the trend of giving the Lugas very poor talents. The 50% survive chance is not that good on an Uber, as you would want them to always stick around for as long as possible, and needing to rely on what is basically a coin flip on an Uber with an over 5-minute cooldown is not reliable at all. The extra second or 1.2 seconds of weaken in the grand scheme of things doesn't do much to this unit's overall uptime due to their extremely long attack frequency, going from 36% uptime to 42% uptime, or 43% uptime to 51% uptime depending on what trait weakened. The last two are wave and surge resist talents, which won't matter in most situations due to the fact that Pico Land is already fragile as is, and most wave and surge enemies deal extremely potent damage to where having to resist is near useless. If they were actual immunities, then they would actually be worth something. However, since PONOS has an allergy of giving the Lugas useful talents, Pico Land is forced to carry useless resist talents. All of their talents can be skipped. Going from a unit that has god-awful talents to a unit with some of the best talents in a long while is Gravolodon. Gravolodon gains relic targeting, curse immunity, and knockback immunity. All three of these talents are extremely powerful in a melee tanker like Gravolodon. Knockback immunity allows them to more firmly hold the line against enemies like Trolley Blogger and Mr. Mole, also letting them to be able to more consistently hit these enemies. Their knockback immunity is also extremely useful for Most, especially after unlocking their relic targeting and curse immunity. Their health against relics at level 30 alone is already almost 500,000 health, allowing them to tank so many hits from several relic enemies while dishing out great damage in return. Unlike other relic tanks like Dogumaru and Ruri, Gravolodon's game plan is to get up to the front and dish out very powerful wave attacks and hold the line with their huge health pool. Keep in mind that they also share a defense combo with one of the best general walls with Green Shell, allowing their defensive power to be even more effective. Overall, every single one of their talents is worth the investment, especially if you're rather early into Uncanny Legends where you might not have all the very powerful legend units. Then we have Mystica, who gains a 100% chance to survive, surge immunity, and cost reduction. Her cost goes from 5,700 to 5,000, which is not enough of a drop to really make this talent worthwhile, relative to most other price drop talents. Her survive is fine enough, but for a unit with little bulk and high standing range, she will most likely get killed anyways if her survive triggers. Last and honestly her only worthwhile talent is her surge immunity, as this allows Mystica to handle the high abundance of death surges spawned by the very common Cinder Snake and Condemned Pang. Granted, her somewhat lackluster stats means that if you have better options, it's best to avoid investing in her talents as they can easily go elsewhere, but if you lack an anti-Aqua Uber, then pick up at least her surge immunity. Last is Nameless Eyewaltz, who gains an additional 10% chance to Savage Blow, Weaken and Knockback immunity, and Slow Resist. The two immunities are great for preventing his attack from being interrupted and could swing at full power. His Savage Blow chance goes from 50% to 25%, letting him be a little bit more consistent with it, but it isn't that massive of a boost. Last is Slow Resist, which in 90% of situations isn't all too great. These are all great improvements in letting him be more consistent at his job, so if you use Eyewaltz a lot, then I highly recommend investing in his talents, except for Slow Resist. One new unit gains Ultra Talents this update, this being Mission Control Mikako. She gains Angel Targeting and a 50% chance to dodge for 2 seconds. Mikako gaining a new target allows her to be used in more situations to inflict status effects, especially if she's already talented. Seeing as she's already tanky, having dodge on her only improves her survivability even more, and can even fall back on her 50% chance to survive. However, her improvements aren't enough to really make it worth it, so unless you use Mikako a lot and want to use her as a tank and an anti-angel unit, then I'd skip on these Ultra Talents. In this update, there were 4 new enemies added. The first is a Sage Zombie variant of Arost, this being Ulstrich. This enemy sports a massive 1.6 million health pool with 40,000 DPS, has a 20% chance to deal a toxic attack that cuts 20% of a unit's maximum health, and has infinite revives that bring them back to life with 50% health after 6 seconds. They are slightly faster than the regular Arost, but not nearly as fast as Emost. Then we have the true final boss of Uncanny Legends, Sage of Life Dr. Nova, a relic Sage enemy that deals a massive 99,999 damage alongside her explosion ability that spawns at 350 range. She can also slow units for 6.67 seconds and curses them for 33.3 seconds, that is if they survive her hits at all. She has a rather wide LD, spanning from 250 to 650 range. She also sports a massive 5 million health, making her the second bulkiest enemy at base magnifications in the game outside of Collabs, only behind Malevolent Eraser. Edie Knee, unlike her other enemy variant, is a lot weaker, only sporting 555,000 health and only dealing 50,000 damage. However, unlike Edie Ray, this version of the enemy is used as a swarm, allowing them to be a much deadlier collective than the singular enemy of the first invasion stage. Last is Cafeteria Cat, who deals a pretty strong 25,000 damage with an Omni Strike that spans from negative 250 to 300 range, allowing them to hit rather far into your lines. They sport a decent 1.7 million health, can also curse units for 3 seconds, and is immune to slow. They have 8 knockbacks, meaning they can easily re-trigger their attack with rebound. In this update, we finally get the last 2 remaining Uncanny Legends 4-star subchapters, with 4 stars being added to Humanity Catified and Sacred Forest. After beating all of 4-star Uncanny Legends, a new stage is unlocked in Sacred Forest. This being the Revival of Origin Invasion. The Revival of Origin Invasion has Relic Doge, Sorrel, JJ Jackrabbit, Autumn, Old Horn, and the tree's power source herself, Sage of Life Dr. Nova, served as the boss. The second stage added is an invasion of the Face of God. In order to unlock this stage, you need to beat the Eldritch Forces Invasion stage and have beaten all of 1-star Uncanny Legends. This stage features unbuffed Doge Darks, Relic Doges, 2780 Anis, and a Galactic Overseer Neandam as major backliner support. The new subchapter added in this update is the Restricted Area. The first level is the Fleming Seaway, featuring Zombo, Dogenstein, Ziggy, the Sloth, and Ulstrich as the boss. Then we have the Antimatter Jungle, featuring Doge Dark, Diabralo, Cappy, Tarsiriel, and Tekkenol Hyena. In the Inert Zero Flux, we have Dogenstein, Diabralo, Akudoge, Wickedface, and Dark Dober. Tropic Entropy features only 4 Zappies and Ulstrich as the boss. In the Euler Archipelago, there is BB Bunnies, Cerberus Kids, Dr. KO, Reynard, and Death Corey. Last is the Heaven-Defying Fruit, featuring Dogenstein, Mistress Celebutal, 2 Ulstriches, and King Wawa as the boss. Seeing as there is a Cafeteria Cat enemy, along with it comes new stages for this true form. These stages are more balanced towards UL magnifications, despite the game rating them only as insane. The first stage has Ginger Snaches, JJ Jackrabbits, Sir Seals, Mr. Mole, and the titular Cafeteria Cat. The second stage features a tougher cast of enemies, these being Lil Doge, Gabriel, Mega Baba, Heavenly Hippo, Chibanel, Kamel, and of course once again having Cafeteria Cat. There is a new event map that is meant to help grant the players Legend Souls. These will be explained in the Miscellaneous section of the video. The difficulty of the stages ranges from EOC 1 balancing to mid SOL balancing. The final stage of the gauntlet has Ghost Doge and Ghost Snake, as well as Ghost Baba, Scissoroo, Nimoy and Ursa Major. On screen now is the race for getting these Legend Souls across the 10 levels of the gauntlet. Initially added in version 13.6, this Otherworld Coliseum event didn't have a proper condition tied to it. Now that it does, I will cover the stages and the condition here. The condition for these first stages is that every unit costs the same, all costing 500 cents to send out. This means that both Low Mohawk and Killer Cat share the exact same cost. Round 1 features Wickedface, Shadowboxer K, Raging Gory, Midnight D, Aki, Lenoir, and Autumn. Round 2 features Lemur, Moth, Calamaria, Teacher Bunbun, Croxo, Nimoybor, and Chibinel. Round 3 features Gabriel, Angelic Gory, Red Energy, Saydober, Dark Emperor Neandam, Cappy, and Taki. Round 4 features Metal Doge, Muth, Henry, Sir Metal Seal, Toucan, and Dober PD. Round 5 features Old Horn, Impurita Seal, Miss Haka, Sorrel, Zooch, Loki, and Hanywanwan. This Coliseum goes up to 2 stars, and in 2 star, the buff is 120%. For 1 star, you can get a rare ticket and 2 platinum shards after the 3rd and 5th stages respectively. On 2 star, you can get an additional rare ticket and a dark cat's eye on the 3rd and 5th stages respectively. The other condition that had stages added in 13.6 but wasn't implemented was a 1 rarity unit only, or rarity representative. This makes it so that you can only send out 1 unit from a specific rarity at once. For example, if you send out Pizza Cat, you can't send out another super rare, like Can or Fishman. This doesn't affect the lineup creation, as you can still have multiple units of the same rarity in the lineup. The first stage features BB Bunnies, Sir Seals, Doge Darks, Raging Gories, and JK Bunbun. The second stage features Zoj, Mr. Angel, Heavenly Hippo, Angelic Gory, Lord Gravy, and Ziggy. The third stage features The Face, Metal One Horn, Crocodinator, Pigeon Disable, and Lil Bunbun. The fourth stage features Ultra Baba, Mistress Celebutal, Yukan, Corporal Waylon, Akudoge, Fallen Bear, and the Behemoth. The final stage has Gabriel's, Baba's, Gory's, Relic Doges, Mr. Puffington, Borfib, and Chick-fil-A. This Coliseum goes up to 2 stars, and at 2 star, the buff is 120%. For 1 star, you can get a rare ticket and 2 platinum shards after the 3rd and 5th stages respectively. On 2 star, you can get an additional rare ticket and a dark cat's eye on the 3rd and 5th stages respectively. For the first of these miscellaneous changes and additions, various rewards for the River City collab stages have been buffed. On screen now are the reward buffs, all of these granting more XP for clearing the stage. By clicking on a unit's true or ultra form page, you can click on the following evolution item, and as long as the stage is on, it will take you to said stage. For example, if you click on a purple cat fruit or cat fruit seed, it will take you to growing purple. Gamatoto now has a chance to be zoned in and is able to bring back at least one of each item from an expedition. This lasts for 3 expeditions, and the bonus lasts for 24 hours. A new event gacha is added, which requires the legend souls mentioned earlier. However, this set contains no units, but rather valuable items that many would want to get. The 3 highlighted rewards are being able to get a rare ticket, a platinum shard, and being able to get 1 million XP 3 times. The guaranteed chance for these rewards requires 30 rolls. The highlighted rewards can only be collected a certain amount of times as mentioned earlier, so after you get all of the main rewards, it's useful to roll these for power-up collection and extra XP bonuses. There is a new cat combo featuring Illusionary Guardian Vega, Dark Laser, Lull Dark, and Assassin Bear called Dark Contract. This is a starting money up large combo. 2 new Meow medals have been added, one for clearing all of 4-star Uncanny Legends, and the other for clearing the Revival of Origin Invasion stage. Last is the new user rank rewards. User rank 23,400 gives 5 rare cat's eyes, 23,500 gives 5 super rare cat's eyes, and 23,600 gives 5 uber rare cat's eyes. The Metal Slug collab is finally present in the English version again after 10 months of it being last ran in the Japanese version. If you want to know more about what was added in this round of collabs, check out my video where I cover version 13.1. Neither the Bikuramin and the new Mercstoria collab content is present in the game files. This update was quite a large update, finally concluding the long journey of 4-star Uncanny Legends with the surprise of an entirely new unit instead of Edie's true form, which got its own stage in the face of God Invasion. Also, Old Stretch is quite the intimidating enemy with those stats it has, but I want to know how you guys feel about this update. Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video, as this lets me know this is the sort of content I should continue to make. Also, shout out to the following channel members: Something Something YouTube, Potato King, Dr. Deadly, and Uberless for being gold and silver members. If you want to receive a shout out like these channel members here, then become a silver member or higher today. Becoming a channel member supports what I do in a way that helps keep the lights on, and channel members receive an exclusive role in my Discord server, which can be found in the description down below. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day.